Welcome to Straight Shot Politics. Each episode will bring you in-depth discussion with experts, community leaders, and analysts who will share their insights, experiences, and predictions. From local elections to global diplomacy, we'll provide you with the tools and perspectives you'll need to navigate today's real-world landscape.
Welcome to Straight Shot Politics. I'm Lisa Chafee. My co-host today is Michael Nash.
Hello, hello.
And today we are speaking with Jonathan Broadbent, who is a leading expert in sponsored retirement plans, ERISA plan governance, and fiduciary stewardship. He gained extensive experience as director of marketing at a national TPA overseeing compliance and audit teams, has worked with various organizations, including hospitals, schools, and multinational enterprises, and has conducted education sessions with the IRS TEGE division. He's also founded Plan Partners LLC in 2013 to provide independent fiduciary advice free from conflicts of interest. Jonathan's latest initiative, Unwoke Investing, seeks to counterbalance left-leaning investment objectives, sometimes referred to as woke, with more traditional values-based and fundamentally solid investment guidance. And this begins with defining and identifying left-leaning investment managers and companies. Jonathan and I met a couple of years ago through one of our many extracurricular activities. Jonathan, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Lisa. Glad to be here.
We appreciate it, and I'm really excited to talk to you. You and I, like I said, have known each other for a few years now. Both have been involved in promoting, advocating for parental rights and education and making our schools the best that they can be. But the other thing we have in common is we both serve on our local county central committee. Tell everybody your role and what you're doing now with Precinct Strategy.
Well, if you don't mind, Lisa, I'd like to give a little perspective, just because I think maybe it'll sort of set the tone for conversation here. Please don't hold it against me, but I'm ex-Wall Street. I'm a guy who got recruited years and years ago by Wall Street to go and work in a unique niche. And I would probably be there and just sort of happily enjoying my life and oblivious, were it not for the fact that my wife ran for school board. She ran for school board, and really prior to COVID and the eye-opening experience of that, I started to see the problems in schools. And I'm one of those people, and I candidly, for all your listeners, please, if you're at all like me, please step up. But for me, I can't see children put in harm's way. And I saw kids being abused, twisted, manipulated, divided, gender politics, race baiting, etc. And so, like you, Lisa, I know you did the same thing. You do the same thing. You care enough about children. You stepped into the ring and started advocating for a return to traditional education. That actually kind of a domino effect. And that I started volunteering and doing a lot of activities around childhood education and trying to return to traditional education, reading, writing, arithmetic, the sciences, But I realized pretty quickly I was kind of turning to politicians and pointing and saying, are you seeing this? There's terrible stuff happening in the schools. And look, this book is clearly pornographic and awful, and the grades are terrible. And I got it was crickets. I'm like,
Crickets?
how is it possible? And
you didn't get labels like a right-wing extremist or something? Crickets?
Yeah, right. Either it was one or the other. Either people just wouldn't respond; they would give a blank stare. And at that period of time, and sorry, it's a long-winded answer, but I think it's really hopefully relevant, and it kind of spurs some people. But I was actually going out. I spent a little over 3 years as a board member, a chair, and territory lead for something called Protect Ohio Children. And I covered 204 plus school districts, and I was coaching communities on how to go and fight and advocate. But I saw we could go up there and say whatever you want at the podium and show people. We'd have like big printouts of the failures of the schools and the high cost and the like prints of pages from the pornographic books. It's, with people doing gross things given to like 8-year-olds and stuff. And there was like nothing, and we couldn't get anything from any politician. They were like terrified to do anything. So that led me into Precinct Strategy, and that got me motivated enough that I am now a central committeeman. And I'll leave it there because I'm assuming we're going to dive into what that means.
Yes, and you're right. I did. I ran for school board in 2021 in the middle of COVID. What a lot of people don't understand is school board races technically are nonpartisan, which means they don't identify on the ballot as to whether they're Republican or Democrat. And of course, as we've seen the last couple of cycles, even going back to when I ran, school board races are now extremely political. And it was through the help of Central Committee endorsement from my 2 slate mates. The 3 of us sought the endorsement. I didn't get it. My slate mates did, and they won. So it's all connected. So let's start with the foundation, layman's term. So a lot of people don't understand, what is Central Committee? How is it made, if you will, and what is its main role?
Yeah, absolutely. It's this I can't possibly overstate the importance of Central Committee and this strategy that's actually been around for about 15 years. And I'll get to the point where I tell you I'm now very good friends with the guy who created the website, the podcast, wrote the book, etc. And he and I co-train America on Precinct Strategy. But beginning with the beginning, we have an unbelievably amazing system of government in the United States, if only we paid attention and actually did it. It's been broken, and I can make the argument that it was broken on purpose so that very few people could have most of the power. And we've migrated so far away from we the people, the whole government of the people, by the people, and for the people.
Right.
We kind of say that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was agreeing with you. Yes.
Yeah, so we kind of say that, but we overwhelmingly don't know what that really means. And it means that we in the United States have it's just awesome. It's unbelievable, amazing system of government where a lot of people don't know this, and it's really unfortunate. We kind of have to go back to what should have been taught to us in grade school. In the 50s and 60s, we had civics, and it was taught like how our system of government actually works. And it was just through some really bad actors that was stripped out of school. And so I recognize that for a lot of your audience, some of what I say may sound strange, but I'm really hoping that people open up their browser and take a look and confirm, because once you take that first little bite of the mana of like what our government really could be and should be and is supposed to be, it's amazing. So here's how it works. We have what are called precincts. In Ohio, they're precincts. In some places, they're called a ward. We all know the basic structure of the United States. We have 50 states and a bunch of territories, and within them, we have counties. And our brains sort of stop there. We think, okay, I live in such and such county in X state, but it actually goes down into a smaller subdivision. Every county is divided up into a small little community, and every community is supposed to have a local representative from the Republican Party. Every single person in the United States is supposed to have somebody who is their local eyes and ears and their conduit to our government. That in and of itself is an amazing starting point, and it's dastardly that so many Americans don't understand that. And unfortunately, just through not understanding it and letting it sort of go off the rails, we've gotten to the point now where all across the country, those little communities, those little subdivisions, if you will, of community that are supposed to have a local representative, there are about 400,000 of them, and they comprise almost all of the power of the Republican Party, and about half of those seats are vacant. Nobody has bothered to fill them. And what that means, Lisa, is that about half of America has no local representative. And many of those who are there and don't understand the power and significance of their role. So let's use that as a starting point.
That's a great starting point. And looking on your website, Ohio Precinct Strategy.org. I'm not sure if this is you or somebody else who had developed that website, but it breaks it down nicely as far as what you just explained. So I want to get a quick plug into that website, Ohio Precinct Strategy.org.
Thank you for that, Mike.
Yeah.
So I actually came to that website. That's, to be clear, that's actually not my website. I point a lot of people to it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Not only in Ohio, but nationally. So here's the way that it breaks down. I started kind of going online and doing research, and I heard people talking about, at the time, I lived in a county that had a lot of people. So actually, let me add a key element to this. Your local representative of the Republican Party is supposed to figure around maybe 2,000 people, because that's manageable. I mean, think about your state senator or whatever. There's like 2 million people they're supposed to represent, whatever. It's just impossible that they could really be the eyes and ears and figure out what's happening in your community. But I started looking at it, and I started seeing that a lot of the seats were vacant. So, Mike, what I did is did some online research. I found some things. I found a website called precinctstrategy.com. And through that, it's just kind of a wild happenstance that I started reading and started clicking some things, and I found the guy that was running it, and he does a daily podcast. And a friend of mine, how do I want to set the stage for this? So Dan Schultz is his name. Dan Schultz, who created Precinct Strategy, the website and the podcast and everything. He is a West Point grad. He's a lawyer. He's incredibly smart. And I've told him this, and we acknowledge it regularly when we join up and teach America on precinct strategy. He's kind of a prickly personality. He can be pretty gruff. And some mutual friends asked me to step in and help out. And so I joined some of these, what are called X spaces on the social media platform X, formerly Twitter. I listened in, and I heard Dan talking about it, and I chimed in it a few times, and I tried to kind of smooth things out, because prepare yourself. I think you should go, and I definitely think you should go. But when you join in the space, Dan's one of those guys. If you start getting off the rails and start talking about stuff, he's like, excuse me, come back on topic. I don't want to talk about that. He's not that bad. I'm exaggerating a little bit. But I got involved and started co-hosting with him, and we've been doing it twice a week for over a year. We've got, I don't know, like 50, 60 some weeks or whatever we've been doing it. And it's, here's a shameless plug, Tuesday afternoons, 2 p.m. Eastern, and Friday evenings, 9 p.m. Eastern. It's open to the nation. We've had lots of people in there. I got to know Scott Pressler through that, and a whole bunch of other people. Sometimes we get 10 people that show up. Sometimes we're over 500. It's hit or miss, but we've been training the nation. And through that, I got to know about my own state of Ohio, and learned that Ohio has its own dedicated site. It's so important. It's so fundamental and critical that some people, I actually know them, some people created and run that. So when I get people that contact me and say, I live in Ohio and I recognize the value and importance of this, what do I do? What's my next step? I've got a great guy. His name is Joe Healy. He's in Central Ohio in the Columbus area.
We know Joe.
And you know Joe?
We know
Yes,
Joe.
I serve on Central Committee with Joe. Yeah.
Right. Plus,
awesome.
He's a colorful character.
He is a colorful character.
Yes.
And he tries very, very hard, and he gets out there. The one thing, so this is a little different note, and I've talked to Joe about this. I'm not divulging any secrets. Joe isn't big on social media. So it's kind of a difficult balancing act, because there are people like Dan Schultz and I who are all over social media telling everybody, and we're on podcasts, and if you watch Bannon's War Room, Dan's been on there. Dan knows these guys, all these key players, Royce White. He's good friends with all of them, and some of them actually pick up and run with the messaging about precinct strategy. But I want to, if you'll humor me for a second, I want to pause
Sure.
to interject.
Yeah.
Mike and Lisa, the idea of this. And here's how I want to put this. Whatever your concerns are, all of them, I want to ask you to pause and visualize all of the concerns that you have. The voting machines, First Amendment rights, Second Amendment, K through 12 education, open borders, high taxes, anything. I want you to briefly pause and put all of it into a big pile and think for a moment, hear my voice. Every single one of those can be fixed virtually overnight with precinct strategy. Here's how it works. The idea that we think of people like Nancy Pelosi, even Donald Trump, Elon Musk, George Soros, these billionaires, as having massive influence on our government. Combined, all of them have a tiny fraction of the power of precinct strategy. They can't do anything. They can't do anything without the will and authorization of we the people. I know it sounds like an exaggerated expression, but here's how it works. The only way, kind of like a farm team in sports, the only way that people can rise up and gain power within the Republican Party is through getting approval at some local level in some role somewhere. And even Trump, all of them, Nancy Pelosi, every single one of them, at some point has had to go and seek the approval of their party's local representation, their local GOP, or for the Pelosi's of the world, they do the same thing on the Democrat side, but I don't pay attention to them because they turn themselves into communists. But that's another conversation.
But to interject real quick, so people understand, let's take for example last year's Senate race here in Ohio. We had Bernie Moreno, Matt Dolan, and Frank LaRose, and they all went to every county party that endorses, because not all county parties do endorse candidates in a primary. And during the primary, Bernie Moreno received more county party endorsements than Matt Dolan and Frank LaRose. And that was a big boost for him. And he ended up winning all 88 counties on election day. So that is what the role of Central Committee does, is they screen those candidates and they vote to endorse or not. And that weighs heavily on people. As secretary of our local Franklin County party, I see the emails, questions coming in. Who are you endorsing? It's very important.
That's a key point. Thank you for that. That's a great clarifying way of looking at it. That's not the sum total, but that is a key element. And in the context that I put out there of who survives and who proceeds in politics, you're spot on. That's exactly right. There's nothing more important to somebody trying to get into, survive, or excel in politics than endorsements. And who gives those endorsements? Us, we the people.
Correct.
And so you start to see the devious logic behind weakening and sort of hiding the functionality of the Republican Party. So on the county level, and I'm going to get into the description, or actually a couple thoughts all at once. One is, once you have a good conservative base, what I like to refer to as America First or conservative, um, what I think of as, or what I suggest we should all think of as conservative Republicans. You get a conservative Republican group running your county, and they start making good conservative choices about who gets endorsements and who doesn't and who they pass on, et cetera. But they actually do a lot more than that as well. Like, here, getting back to the concept of the how our system of government is to run. Think of it like a pyramid. The bottom of that pyramid is we the people. We're the support, we're the foundation, we feed the system. What we have now, unfortunately, is an inverted pyramid where we have all the leadership resting at the top, and that's by design. But when we flip that and get it power back to we the people, imagine, if you will, and Lisa, you said you're in Franklin County.
Correct.
Imagine Franklin County, and if you are a resident of Franklin County and you notice something, absolutely anything, if it's concerning to you, and you feel that you've just had enough, you're frustrated with some circumstance, you should have the ear of your local representative and tell that representative, I'm really frustrated by this X, fill in the blank, anything. They should take that in and imagine if they hear many people from the community all saying the same thing. I'm concerned about X. Well, it's gonna raise the alarm bell. I better do what my constituents want. They're very concerned. Now imagine one precinct over, or just down the other side of the county. You get a whole bunch of areas, a bunch of precincts that all have the same complaint, the same concern from we the people. A lot of people raising concern about issue X, anything. Again, it can be anything. Then when you have enough people and they're all talking to those representatives in their local precinct, suddenly the next time you have a meeting at the county level, you have a whole bunch of representatives that all raise their hand and say, I've been hearing from my constituents that they're really concerned about X. Oh, me too. Hey, I've been hearing the same thing. We better do something about it. Let's create an action to fix X, because our people are upset about it. They want something. They need something. It's up to us to fix it. That starts to get into a completely different understanding of the way that our government is supposed to work than most people have. But envision it. It's magic. It's amazing, because anything that we're concerned about, we ring the alarm bell, and it is our expectation that those people who are in service to us, our representatives, should go to the next level, to the county, but then take it one step further. We're using Franklin County as an example. So let's say, I don't know how many precincts are in Franklin County, maybe 1,000. If
152 is we go by ward and townships.
Certain townships. Okay.
Mhm.
So again, I'm pausing for your help for your audience. The term precinct is kind of general. I use it in a general sense. Some of those little subsections of counties might have a different term attached to them. It might be called a ward or a township or something, depending on where you live. But using that term precinct in the general sense, let's say that it would just pick a round number. Let's say there are 1,000 precincts, and 800 of those precincts all have the same concern. They have the same issue, and they all get together at the county level, and 800 of those people stand up and say, my people are really upset. My people tell me that they want something, and they have an effect, and that county initiates some change. Now imagine, Ohio has 88 counties. Now imagine if 80 of those counties all did the same thing. And they all said, you have 80 out of 88 counties that all have the same document or something similar saying, we're very concerned about X. Now, put yourself in the position of our governor, our secretary of state, our auditor, it doesn't matter. Any senator, anyone. I can 100% guarantee you, I will bet anybody argue with me that none of them can ignore that. There's not any chance.
They
They
shouldn't.
can't ignore 80 out of 88 counties all coming to them with a document and putting it on their desk and saying, all of our people. And that represents hundreds of thousands of people, millions. It represents millions of people all over the state. They can't ignore it. So going back to my earlier statement, it sounded like, I don't know what it must have sounded like to anybody who's not familiar with precinct strategy, but that's why I say there's so much power in Central Committee that's virtually untapped in today's era.
That's a big call out, which is untapped, because the way you explain it, which is beautiful and fantastic, I'm not sure. I only know about Franklin County because I'm also living in Franklin County, but I'm not sure about other counties. I don't believe that central committees are following through with the description that you just provided.
I would have to agree. And every county is different, but
Right.
at least here in Franklin County, so we have 152 potential central committee seats, but we only have 128 of those filled. And
Oh,
that's
wait, yeah, I've got a pen out. Give me those numbers again, please.
152 potential and only 128 filled.
Well, you're better off than many. So all across the country and certainly within the state of Ohio, ballpark around 50%. About 50% of the
Wow.
seats are filled.
Holy cow.
But the sad thing is I think leadership, and I'm not calling out any particular county in general. Like you said earlier, things have been set up by design. So I never knew what Central Committee was until I ran for school board.
Yeah, same here.
And
I know what it was until it was a few years ago when I started doing this.
right.
Yeah.
And it is, I ran the year after. It is being on Central Committee is an elected position. Here in Franklin County, we have elections every 2 years, and in the even number of years. So there's not enough education, and of course, it costs money sometimes, to get people educated because you can't just rely on social media because not everybody's on social media. So we do have to do a better job of educating people that with civics, that's where it starts really at the local level is with Central Committee, I think. And even when I graduated high school in 89, so it tells my age. In my civics class, they didn't talk about Central Committee. It was, governor,
Right.
president,
Congress.
senator, et cetera, et cetera. So,
Supreme Court.
yeah. So what do you think we need to do to get more people involved? We're going to take a little sidetrack there.
No, it's an important one because it's actually, I don't even know how many hours now we have logged into trying to answer that exact question. So we've got the website, we got the podcast, all can be found at precinctstrategy.com. And the book, Dan's book, Precinct Strategy, of that same name, is available, written. You can buy digital, and now there's some like a computer voice will read to you or whatever if you want it read to you in the car. It's pretty short and sweet. That is a great starting point. A lot of it is word of mouth to try and bring people back up to speed on it. Part of the way that I look for anybody that is on social media, and if you're on X, find Dan Schultz or find me. And my approach, and I say this every time we do a space, by the way, if you're not familiar with that term, it's basically just like a group call within the social media platform. We all get together and we share stories and perspective, and we help and we encourage each other, talk about what's happening. We get a lot of great success stories. My county happens to be one of them. And I'm one of them. But my view of that space that we run twice a week is we have to catch people where they are, and understanding that there are people that may come into the space, or people that may be listening to your show today, who have no idea what this means. And first thing to know is that in my book, there is no such thing as a dumb question, because 3.5, 4 years ago, I was the dumb question guy. I didn't know anything. It was like, what are you talking about?
Right.
I lost track of time. So, or years, I think it was 4. So, um, we kind of run the gamut in those spaces, and trying to educate and train people of, here's the basics of it, nuts and bolts, high level. Here's precinct strategy, what it's about, why it's important. And then we allow a lot of Q&A, or we encourage as much Q&A as possible. And then we get into some specifics. So there's a little bit of something for everybody that's able to come in and join us in those spaces. But beyond that, you're absolutely right. I wish there were a much bigger budget for TV commercials and radio spots and postcards and mailers and stuff, but there isn't. But I do think that a lot is starting to happen that's spreading word of mouth, because it's self-fulfilling. Because when we do catch people and we get their attention and they run, then they go out into their community and they introduce themselves kind of during the run and once they're in that seat, and talk about it. Here's the way that it should work. The people who believe in the idea that they should be actually doing their job. And just to draw an example, it's kind of a parallel. We all know that there are a lot of school board members out there who are just rubber stampers. They're just there to fill a seat and approve whatever, and they show up when they're told to, and they don't like to think or act. We have a lot of that, unfortunately, within certainly both parties. And the Republican Party is a lot of people that should be replaced. But the people who understand what they're supposed to be doing and decide, I'm going to go and I'm going to act, I'm going to think and use reason and critical thinking, and I'm going to try and find better answers, and I'm going to listen to people in my community. Those people get into it and they feed their community with information and knowledge. And then those people tell other people, hey, I had this guy show up, and they told me that there's a local representative, that they're my local representative of the Republican Party. I'd never heard of that. I didn't know what a precinct seat was. And so I get that. I go around, I've gone door to door with slate cards and stuff, and it's awesome. And then those people get active and they give an avenue and conduit. I give them a conduit to understand what's happening within the Republican Party, and they give me the eyes and ears of my community. So just to use an example, there are people that are concerned about the status of the schools in our county. Or again, it could be any example. I hear a lot from people who are very concerned about chemtrails and what comes out of planes, and so anything. And if it's in your head, it is viable subject for you to talk about with your local representative. But then those people, and in this case, that's me and that's Lisa in her county. She has people under her care, and those people need to know to be able to approach their representative, express that concern, and have they are the voice of government. When we start doing that, Mike, hopefully this answers your question, but when we start doing that and become more successful at it, then it's way more work than just being a rubber stamper and showing up and feeling like you just got your name on a placard somewhere.
Yeah.
But it's a much better system of government. Instead of waiting for Trump or somebody in DC to tell the governor something, who then tells the Republican Party, who then tries to tell us, here's how you're going to behave, or here's the next thing that you have to do. That's complete rubbish. It's complete rubbish. We need to be much more active as a people at insisting on behavior. And that, so people ask all the time about, like, well, how do we fight back? With the whatever you want to call them, the Communist Party. I call them the Democrat neo-communists, or DNC. That's just my term for
That's
them.
about accurate. Yeah.
Yeah, I keep asking people. I'm like, just tell me what's the difference between the stated the platform of the Communist Party and the current behaviors of the Democrat Party. I've been waiting for years, nobody answers. So I feel justified in using that sort of terminology. But sorry, Mike, I lost my train of thought.
No, you're good. So essentially, you're trying to go down the road of the framework is already in place. The methodology is already in place. You just need to put active members into it. And the members that are currently there need to be active and proactive with regards to getting their constituents' messages and passing them along to the larger group, right?
Thanks for bringing me back to that. That's where I was headed with it exactly.
We're good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's totally. People need to understand, not only in communities, who that representative is and that they exist and their role, but the people in those roles need to do a better job of understanding their responsibilities. I mean, in my county, we had a good solid, I want to say 10 years of people who thought that they were like fulfilling some sort of duty by maybe, I don't know, a couple of times a year, they would show up and sit there and listen to one person, typically just one person, the chair, speak. And then they would all like shake hands and, hug each other and stuff. And they would go home, and nobody for years and years and years, there was never anybody that did anything.
For the record, John, we did not share notes beforehand, but you're talking directly into our talking points.
Yes, we're having that situation here in Franklin County.
Yeah.
And we are making changes. For example, we now have an education committee, which I started with a wonderful lady, Michelle Coldiron, another Central Committee member, 2 years ago. And the role of that committee is to find school board candidates, and we support them and we train them and mentor them and throughout the whole process. We've also got a grassroots committee forming now. So we're working on getting our Central Committee members engaged and actually helping us build the bridges that we need to build with our communities so that everybody's voice is heard, and also people understand the process and feel engaged and don't feel so disconnected from the system.
But also kind of getting back to John's point to this, John was saying that lots of folks who are on this list, who their name and their phone number is public record for being the Central Committee member in their area, many folks in that particular area don't know who they are.
No, they don't. We have a lot of people that just show up to the endorsement meeting, and that's what they think their duty is, just to endorse. But
they don't know that they're their community liaison. They don't know that they're their constituents. They have a responsibility to their constituents, as John was saying, to pass their message or pass their thoughts and feelings along to the large organization.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, school boards are a great example of what could be done and should be done. And yes, it is true in Ohio that technically school board races are billed as nonpartisan. But let's be clear and candid about where we are and how we got here. The other side of the aisle, the Democrat Party, whatever you want to call them, I guess we're still supposed to call them Democrats. The Democrat Party, they haven't been doing that for years. They haven't been viewing school board races. They have been fighting hard, endorsing, going out with candidates and going door to door and they've been doing everything to take over and run and rule the roost in education. And yeah, it all ties back to follow the money, and there's a lot of money in teachers unions and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But that let's save that for another conversation.
I don't feel
another time.
sorrows for them whatsoever.
What's that?
I don't feel sorrows for them whatsoever.
But
Yeah,
they're doing it.
there you go.
They're doing it, and we need to be doing it too. Our
Right.
central committee members need to be out there knocking on doors. At the minimum, making phone calls. We do have some older people, God love them, or people for whatever reason physically can't get out and knock on doors. Then you find another way to do it. But I'm sorry, I interrupted you, Jonathan. Continue with your train of thought.
No, it's totally all spot on, and I think we're finally getting some counties to come around to the fact that it is partisan, and we need to do our job of creating an education committee, vetting school board candidates, finding the good ones, endorsing them, and making sure that we can start to return sanity back to these school boards, because what the left, I'm certain of this, and I welcome debate on it, but what the left seeks in school board candidates is empty shells. They want feckless. They want people who will follow orders and rubber stamp. And that means all kinds of things. It means a recognized name. If it's, somebody who, some years ago was a star in the football team, or their family's last name is well known in the community, they'll run them as long as those people will not do their job of ever questioning or evaluating. And you can see that as a result. And sorry, I'm going to delve into it. This is a cross topic, but it's one that's near and dear to me. But you can see it in what my wife likes to refer to as the five-eyed monster. The long-standing track record of the typically 5 school board members in a school district always agreeing, saying aye to everything, with almost never, it's so unbelievably rare to ever hear anybody on a school board meeting say nay, I disagree with anything. And it's just constant. It's a parade of rubber stamping fecklessness that's been going on for decades. So that brings us back to how do we fix it? And we fix it by bringing in the Republican Party, asserting conservative values, creating the education committee. And I applaud Franklin County for taking that step and that initiative, because once you do and you start meeting people, then you can do the vetting and hopefully start to get 1 and then 2 and then 3. When you have 3 conservative school board members, the magic happens. You can flip school boards back to education, away from the wokadoodle, race baiting, gender confusion, divisive, the sexualization of children, all the gross stuff that's happening instead of education. And by the way, I'm going to say this one last part and bring it back to precinct strategy. But if you're in the state of Ohio, here's something I encourage you to recognize. You may be exposed to the notion that your school district is maybe not terrible. Maybe the state gives your school district an A grade or a blue ribbon or a running rhino or whatever, some kind of goofy quasi award looking thing or whatever. But here's the truth of the matter. Unfortunately, Ohio has fallen from a top 10 destination for education to 38th in the nation. And we've also become one of the most expensive in the country. At the same time, the U.S. has fallen to roughly dead last of all developed nations, which makes Ohio one of the most expensive places on the planet not to educate your children.
Which is sad, because we're trying to get all this industry in Ohio, the chip factory and all these things, that we're trying to bring lots of jobs to Ohio. And with jobs, you're going to have people who have children, which is an unfortunate situation that the schools in general score so low.
Well, and along that lines, we don't have the educated people to fulfill those jobs.
Right.
I think that's what you were trying to get to. The other point of that, John, is property taxes. So we get school boards who are just, like you said, say aye to everything. And teachers union wants more money. Okay, we need a levy. Well, what happens? You get higher property taxes. And then they come back a couple of years later. Hey, we need more money, higher property taxes.
Right.
And it's getting to where in certain districts, you can't even afford to live there. Most of the teachers can't even afford to live there.
And then on top of that, school board members and levies, we found that there is out of state funding that comes in that supports whatever message they're trying to create.
Well, that comes from the teachers union. As we saw the last school board election cycle, the OEA, Ohio Education Association, spent several $100,000 running TV ads against candidates in Hilliard, Southwest City, I think maybe Geauga, somewhere up there, Cuyahoga, and a couple other counties, but money coming from teachers' dues and some out-of-state money. Yeah.
Right. So we have on top of that, not to stray away from that subject, John, too far, but sorry, we wanted to kind of point that out because that affects things too. And to your point, if you don't have a strong central committee that stays in touch with their constituents, then that outside money then is more effective. The local people are more easily swayed when their messaging comes from out-of-state messaging services that are paid to make their point.
They bring in big money and big influence.
Yeah.
So I want to encourage your listeners to go to Protect Ohio Children. That's a website, protectohiochildren.com. You'll find me and some of my videos there. I co-created something called the Academic Accountability Project, and we teach people how to look at these kinds of issues. And we can help any school district in Ohio at Protect Ohio Children website to create some financial disclosure so you can start to know what it costs per pupil per year. For instance, many school districts are what I call like the Chevy level. So at around, or maybe a Kia, so around $17,000 per pupil per year. Just poof, imagine a Kia appearing in your driveway, a cheap Kia, $17,000 per pupil per year. But some of them are at the Buick level of $40,000 to $43,000 per pupil per year to be roughly last place, to achieve sometimes single or the teens for literacy. It's an absolute outrage for anybody who starts to look at it. But getting back to our point, I wanted to give sort of a little closure to the education piece because I could go on about that for hours.
Mm-hmm.
The way to fix this, because it became political and because conservative, pro-America, pro-West values have been eroded and degraded for so long through political battles, with education being a key battleground, the only thing that counters that is when and if enough of us get involved at the local level where you live to reclaim our representative government and assert the America that you want to see. The leftists, the globalists, the cabal swamp, whatever you want to call them, they've run roughshod over us. And our Republican Party has played, I know I throw a lot of analogies out. I'm going to use one more. I remember, I used to love basketball. I remember as a kid going to see the Harlem Globetrotters. Well, the Republican Party for the longest time has been the Washington Nationals to the Harlem Globetrotters. And if you don't know what that means, that's the team that travels around with the Harlem Globetrotters. And their whole point is to go out on the court and play act and lose every time.
Mm-hmm.
That's our Republican Party right now.
Yeah, it seems to feel that way, especially on the local level. So We're about to run out of time. Let's summarize a couple of things. So, if anyone is interested in being a member of Central Committee, they should reach out to their current Central Committee chair, and every county party should have a website. I know Franklin County does. And you can go there and reach out to them, talk to them. Elections are next year, so it's the even number years. And we can walk you through the steps to do it. You pull a petition. Here in Franklin County, I think we needed 6 signatures from people in our ward to get on the ballot. And then once you are elected, if you are elected, you go to the meetings, and then it's what you want to make of it. And we need people to be more proactive, to look at this as really grassroots, because it really is. It's we the people, to quote you. And it can be fun. It is not a paid position. It is pure voluntary. But I've had a wonderful experience, and I encourage everybody to do that. What say you?
Well, yes, absolutely. And I've got a great core group of friends now that are awesome. We ran together. We decided together 4 years ago that we were just fed up, and we decided to run together. Lisa, I've got a little bit of kind of good news, bad news for your audience. A lot of the terminology that we use and some of the timetables and the steps are going to vary depending on where you live. You
Right.
may find that some of the description doesn't apply to your county. Don't let that sway you. Don't let that dissuade you. The first thing to know is between the 2 websites, that's precinctstrategy.com. There's a US map. Click on your state, Ohio probably, or go to ohioprecinctstrategy.org, and you're going to start to get some detail. For instance, when we talk about a precinct, it may use a different term like ward, depending on where you live. It means the same thing. It's the same deal. It's the same seat, but it may use a different term. That election cycle that Lisa was talking about in your county, it may work a little different. Sometimes some counties in Ohio have elections every 2 years. Some are every 4 years. It's a decision. The county gets to decide that. In my county, we have 4 years. That also may be a little bit of a different process to fill the seat. Many have elections. Some states don't even have elections. They have appointments. So for any of your listening audience that may be outside of the state of Ohio, the cool thing to know is that's why Dan Schultz and I do those precinct strategy spaces on the platform X, because anybody can step in. And here's a plug for Dan. I said earlier, you can be kind of a gruff personality, but here's the plug for him. The guy's a brainiac, and it's amazing what he has learned all over the country. We talk all the time. By the way, there are some great success stories we hear from states and counties all over, and you make friends all over in different regions of the country. But I'm not even kidding you. We will hear people call in and they'll say, I'm from fill in the blank, Iowa or Georgia or California. And they'll say, what county? And they'll say the name of a county. And he'll say, have you talked to so-and-so? He literally knows thousands of people all over the country who do what we're talking about doing, what Lisa is doing in Franklin County and what I'm doing in my county, which is to try to bring breathing room back for conservative, pro-America, America First values. I don't mean to put words in your mouth, Lisa, but
No,
that's how
that's
I
it.
view my mission in my county. So yes, please do step in. Don't feel daunted. I'm telling you, there's so many people and so many resources, so many great things out there. Just to tip your toe in the water. Check out Precinct Strategy, and I hope that you or somebody near you fills that role successfully for your community, and that your county gets full of lots and lots of great people, because I'm telling you, you will see a world of difference when you have an active, caring, robust, local GOP.
Agreed. Jonathan Broadbent, thank you for joining us today to
Yeah,
talk
thank you very
about
much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Precinct Strategy. Go to precinctstrategy.com or Ohio. Tell me again, Jonathan.
OhioPrecinctStrategy.org.
Thank you. And also reach out to your local parties. This has been Straight Shot Politics.